Okay. Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to the first episode, if you will, or the zero episode, I'm sorry, of the Atari KongCast. And that's where I get to do my podcast. And I was going to just record it and put it up. But I thought this would be a neat way to do it because if you wanted to watch live and comment or talk about anything, you could do so. So, with that said, this is the show. If you're listening to the audio version of this, if you would like to watch live and participate, if you go to twitch.tv/AtariKong and subscribe, just make sure you click, what do you call it? The notify me when this goes live, because I would like to try to do this at the same time every week, but chances are I'm not going to do it at the same time. So, with that said, what I would like to do right now is kind of talk a little bit about why in the hell I should even be doing a podcast about Atari and retro gaming in general. And there are a few different reasons. Mainly, the first thing is I am 38 years old, okay? I probably look a lot older, but that's just because the years have been hard on me. But I'm 38, so I was born in 78. The Atari was a year old by the time I was born. And when I was a kid, it was probably around 5 before I was even allowed to play it. But my dad had an Atari 2600, and he had a few games for it, and I was never really allowed to play it. And then for some reason or another, I don't know exactly what happened. I'm sure it was like a child support kind of thing. All of a sudden, the Atari 2600 that I was never allowed to touch at my dad's house was now the Atari 2600 that I was allowed to touch, kinda, at my house that belonged to my sister, my older sister. So when she was able to have the Atari and all that other stuff, we were allowed to play. And for the longest time, the only stuff I was really allowed to play was the two-player games if none of my sister's friends were available to come over and play. So, like, Combat. Like, I played so much Combat. Like, I can't even discuss. Like, I probably logged more hours on Combat than any other game. And a lot of it was just playing with my sister. We played a lot of Pong. We even played, like, the two-player Breakout. We did that a lot, too. But that was basically it. It was things that my sister couldn't play by herself. And that's kind of was my first foray into Atari, I guess. And then around that time, I was getting a little older, and I was old enough to go to arcades and go to Skateway and play the video games at Skateway. Go to, like, if we were at the grocery store or the liquor store or something like that, and there was an arcade game there, I could play it. There used to be arcade games everywhere, like at gas stations and shit like that. So whenever we were anywhere, or like we used to go to this. I grew up in Cypress, California, and there was this restaurant called Howard's Cafe or something on Lincoln that we lived right by, and I think they had Miss Pac-Man and Commando. And my other sister, who was my same age, she would always play Miss Pac-Man, and I would always play Commando. So every Sunday, I knew like I had a good hour on Commando. Like that was just how it was. So as I'm doing this and I'm playing arcade games and I'm getting better at the arcade games, and my sister found boys and parties and stuff like that, the precious Atari 2600 at the house wasn't looked at all the time. Like it wasn't like no one was like watching it like a hawk. So I was able to start playing all the other games we had that were like one player games. So the three games that I probably played more than anything else were Donkey Kong, Mousetrap, and Pac-Man. And we had Berserk, and we had Space Invaders, and we had Defender. I'm trying to think what else we had. Can't remember off the top of my head. But like I'm sure we had Adventure, because that would probably be the only reason why my dad got the system in the first place. And I could remember seeing the cartridge in my house, but I don't remember ever playing it. But anyway, so I played Pac-Man a bit, but like the games, and Pitfall. We had Pitfall, of course, and played that a lot. But the games I played over and over again were Donkey Kong and Mousetrap. Like, just I could not get enough of those two games, and strangely enough, they were both Coleco games. And I think that was another thing too, that the cartridges looked completely different. I think our Berserk cartridge was really weird too. I don't know. I might have to get back to you on that one. But we had one cartridge that was like black and it came out to a point. It was really weird. But the Donkey Kong and the Mousetrap cartridges were like that cream color with the sticker on it. And that might have been another reason why I was like, ooh, like these are different. But Donkey Kong I knew because Donkey Kong was at like the skateway that we would go to, that my sister eventually got a job at. So we were there a lot because my sister worked there, and when no one could watch me or something like that, I'd get dropped off at Skateway to have my sister kind of keep an eye on me, which she didn't, but that's fine. And I just ended up playing a lot of video games. But there was a Donkey Kong machine there, but I was never able to play it when Skateway was open because that machine had people on it all the time. So a lot of the time I would end up just playing Rampage or what else did they have there that I played all the time? Rampage, I just played that like every day, but I'll have to think a little harder on that one to find out, to remember what machines they actually had there. But yeah, so I didn't get a whole lot of play on Donkey Kong, and but I had it at home, so like, and when I was a kid, I didn't look at the Donkey Kong at home as like a shit version of Donkey Kong at the arcade. It was like the same game to me. So I basically played Donkey Kong and Mousetrap until about 1986. So at that point, I was like 8 or 9 or something like that. And I ended up getting a Sega Master System. And that was like my first video game system. And that one was mine, nobody else's. And so that was like my prized possession. And I got the Sega newsletter, and I'm like, dude, Sega's so much better than Nintendo. I don't understand why anyone would like Nintendo. The graphics suck and blah blah blah. And I was just a mouthy brat, and all my friends had Nintendo. No one I knew had a Sega. So I can't remember. There was a reason why I wanted the Sega. as opposed to the Nintendo. There was a game, I can't remember, I wouldn't even be able to tell you what the fuck it was. Anyway, so the Sega with the like grid, like, and the little cartridges, like, I thought it was just like so super futuristic. I loved it. And I ended up over the next couple years getting so many games for that. And I finally convinced a friend of mine, Jason, to get a Sega Master System for Christmas. And then that way I would have somebody to trade games with. And we worked it out to where, like, if we both wanted a game, like, I would get this game and he would get that game, so we could, like, trade them out and all this other stuff. And I played a ton of NES, like, at every other friend of mine's house. So it wasn't like I was missing out on Nintendo, but I just had my nose up in the air and thought Sega was so much better. And that was until I got a Super Nintendo. Because basically, I really wanted to play Mario. And when the Super Nintendo came out, I don't know if this was right when it came out, but it came out with this game that was like all the Mario games on the NES, and then this other game called The Lost Levels, which I believe was the original Super Mario Brothers 2 that didn't come out. Like, they kind of shelved it because it was harder than shit. But anyway, and that's all I wanted. So I got that and played the shit out of that. Got a Nintendo 64 when that came out so I could play GoldenEye. And then ended up falling in love with WrestleMania 2000. Like, it was like the greatest wrestling game ever. I loved it. And then ended up with a GameCube and an Xbox and a PS1 and a PS2. And then finally a Wii. And oddly enough, the Wii, the Xbox, I think both PlayStations, and I don't know about the GameCube because I think we got rid of the GameCube before, but all of those broke. They all ended up breaking. And I had a TurboGrafx 16 back in the day too. But the thing that was funny was that all of these other, like, older machines, it was like the older the machine was, the longer it would last. To the point where the only machine out of all those that I had is my Atari 2600 that was probably bought around the time I was born, and it still fucking works. It still has the same fucking RF switch. It's still an amazing machine, and I just absolutely love it. So, yeah. So, and now I still play Atari, and through emulation, have come across games that I never knew existed, and I just absolutely love it. So, on this show, what I'm going to try to do is not only talk about, like, the games, because if you don't know already, there are some really good Atari podcasts out there. There's Ferg's Atari Game by Game podcast. That is an amazing show. I actually really like Atari Visions, where they have the Intellivision guys and the Willie from ColecoVisions and Ferg talking about, like, the games that were made for all the systems and all that stuff. It's a great show. And there's other really good Atari shows. So I'm going to try to make this as different as possible, and that's why doing it on Twitch and having the open chat and all that stuff might actually be pretty cool. So once this is off of Twitch, it'll be on YouTube, and the audio will be on AtariKong.com and eventually on iTunes and all that other shit. So it will be a lot of nostalgic looking back, but I also want to talk about the games and kind of how more of the history, not so much like just Wikipedia rundowns, but like stories from the programmers and stuff like that, but mainly what I think about the game, because apparently my opinion matters. So that's what we are going to be doing. So if you would like to send me a message, like an email or a voice message or anything like that, you could send it and any other feedback to atarikong@gmail.com, and make sure to subscribe to the podcast when you can. Subscribe to the Twitch feed so you can watch the shows live, but also all the other shit I'm doing. Like today is Master System Monday, so I put a poll up on my Twitter page, and I think I'm going to end up playing Alien Syndrome. I think that was in the lead last time. And then tomorrow I'm going to try to freaking beat Raiders of the Lost Ark on 2600. So there's all sorts of fun stuff like that. So until then, make sure to follow me on Twitter too, @AtariKong. And thanks for hanging out. I hope you enjoyed this and it was at least listenable. Take care.